So thank you for joining us tonight. This is Kari, and I am here with Cheryl, and Colleen is not with us tonight. She is celebrating her birthday. So if you see this recording and want to drop a comment about happy birthday to Colleen, I'm sure she would appreciate it. So we're doing Creative Memories Project Recipe Denim Revival, and it's a really neat project recipe. It's pretty simple. I think you'll find that it's going to be very versatile. But a couple things I want to point out about it, and I want to apologize for the shadow. I am in a hotel and I cannot seem to move the table far enough away from the overhead light so you don't get the shadow from my camera. So I apologize for the shadow, but hopefully that won't interfere with the instructions too much. So the way the layout works is it was designed with this punch, which is this double Rickrack chain. And when you punch it, you actually get two chains. So the way it's used is the individual chains. There's three of them on one side of the layout, and then there's three of them on the other side. This is one that they cut in half. So depending on what border maker cartridge you're using, and you might have to adapt the cutting instructions a little bit based on that. So there's a couple of options. If you're not using this double Rickrack chain border maker cartridge, I don't believe that there are any other ones that Creative Memories makes that comes out with two chains that are separate with a border maker cartridge. You're going to either want to punch an extra set of three, or you're going to end up wanting to cut yours in half. So depending on what border maker cartridge you're using, you might have to make some adaptations to the instructions. And I'll point those out as we go. The other thing about the instructions is about directional paper. And my recommendation, very bluntly, is don't use directional paper. And the reason is because for both pieces of paper that you cut, you're going to end up putting it vertically on one page and horizontally on the other. So if you have anything that's truly directional and is really going to matter, I would not recommend choosing that paper for this layout. I would recommend selecting something else. And the third piece of advice is that these three pockets that they've inserted their photos into are embellishments that come with this Denim Revival collection. So if you're using a different collection, they don't come with pockets. You're going to have to make some adaptations. So you could do things like doing photo mats instead. You can do it without any photo mats. I'm also going to show an alternate using a library card pocket and show a template for that. And I will work on getting a template up on our Facebook page early next week. So with that, the instructions there, it's a very fast layout. It should come together pretty quickly. This is my sample with wide open places. I thought it was a very easy one to use with that collection. So all you're going to need is 2 sheets of designer paper that you're going to cut, 2 sheets of paper that you're going to use as your base, and then 1 sheet. They used cardstock, which I would recommend, and you're going to use that to do your punches as well as the 4 photo mats that they have here. And their sample has a lot of photos. So they have 3 on this side, 5 on this side. So it's 8 photos. And again, you can reorient things. So if you decide that you want to do all, more landscape photos, you can actually turn and rotate your layout a little bit. So you could turn it like this. So you end up with this kind of a layout. So there's a lot of ways to adapt this layout. So 2 sheets of designer paper, 2 base pages, and 1 sheet of cardstock. And again, if you do not have the double Rickrack chain border maker cartridge, you probably want an additional piece of cardstock that you can actually punch out, because instead of punching 3 of these, you're going to actually have to punch 6, and there's not enough room on this sheet of paper for you to be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show another collection that I was thinking about doing this with. I was thinking about doing this with this Croptoberfest 2023 because I thought that would work out. I thought it would work out really nice with this. So I was looking at this paper and I'm like, this owl is really cute. And I thought this would go really well, even with those denim pockets. But I'm going to have to turn my owls sideways because there was no way to do this and have it oriented in a manner that wouldn't have them sideways. So this was my issue with this directional paper. When I turned this over, the trees were sideways. And depending on the plaid, I could have the plaids going, some horizontal, some vertical. That was okay, but I was still stuck with the other paper. So take a look at your collection and look at your paper. Directional paper is just not going to work really well. So I was really sad because I wanted to use this for this project recipe, but I wanted to show you that this was just not a good idea for this lab. All right, so the paper that I ended up picking is from the most recent collection, the travel collection, and is it Passport to Adventure, I believe. So these were the papers that were in that collection. And direction didn't matter as much with these. I felt like I could use it. So this is, yeah, it was Passport to Adventure. So this is what I decided I was going to use. I was going to use this green. I was going to use the stamps, and I was going to use this like mustard yellow paper, and I'm going to use black for punching. So how are people doing here as far as, are you ready to go? Should we pause before we start punching, or we're good? Okay.
Good.
So, and I am not used to working on such a small space, so this is definitely an adventure here. All right, so we've got these 2 sheets of paper. And really the main difference when you're cutting them is which paper are you going to use to be this one right here that does not extend the full 12 inches. So because the other pieces, it doesn't matter if it's on the top or the bottom, they're basically the same. So when you're picking which paper you're going to cut, for what they had here is this light blue paper, you might want to take a look at your papers that you're picking and seeing which one would you prefer to have up against or the background for this photo that's right here. So you might have a preference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this mustard yellow paper for that. And so that is designer paper number 1. So with designer paper number 1, we don't have very many cuts. We've actually only got 3 cuts. So the first piece is going to be 5 by 12. So 5 inches wide, 12 inches long. And that's cut number 1. The next cut, you're going to cut this at 6 inches. So you're going to end up with a 1-inch strip that's going to be extra that you're not going to use. And then this 6-inch piece, you're going to rotate it and trim it at 10. So there's only 3 cuts on that first sheet of paper. The first one is at 5 inches. The second one is at 6 inches. And then you're going to turn and rotate and cut that at 10 inches. And you only need these 2 pieces for your layout. The other 2 pieces are scrap. And the second piece is going to sound very familiar. You're going to cut, well, they have them rotated, but it's another 5-inch strip and a 6-inch strip, but these are both going to be 12 inches long. So it's almost the same cutting. So 5 inches and 6 inches. And that's all your designer paper cuts. So far, hopefully everything's been not too bad. Then you're going to want your sheet of cardstock. And depending on what border maker cartridge you're using is going to determine how many strips you have to punch out. I am still going to use the double Rickrack chain. I really like the way this turned out. I think it's a really neat punch and it's very unique. And it is still available in the Creative Memories website. So if you do not have this one, and you've been trying to cut down on how many border maker cartridges you're actually collecting, this one is still a really good one to have because it is so different from the rest of them. So the instructions say you're going to punch it 3 times, and then that will give you 6 Rickrack chains. So sorry for the wobbly table every time I punch down. If you weren't on at the beginning, before we started recording, I'm in a hotel. So I've got challenging lighting and challenging cable and challenging Wi-Fi. So, all right. So you see how this gives us 2 complete chain punches. So again, if you're using a different border maker cartridge, you could decide whether you're going to cut them in half or whether you just need to punch 6 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 more sets.
How much contrast is there between the border maker and the papers that you choose?
So I think there should be good contrast. So if you didn't see my sample layout, I'll pull it out again. So can you see my sample layout here?
I can, yep.
There's some pretty good contrast there because you're using that as the defining border between all your different papers, because it really doesn't matter if your papers, don't go together nicely. You're using this cardstock as that little separate border.
Okay, thank you.
And I think if you stick with all of the neutral colors for the most part, you're probably going to be just fine. Be it black, white, brown, navy, kind of the basics that we tend to always gravitate towards.
Okay.
Does that help?
A little bit.
Well, all right. Sorry, Cheryl. I see you're still typing in the chat here. This is the 3rd set. I think we ought to pause the recording so that way people have an opportunity to catch up. All right, so we've punched our 6 strips of Rickrack, and hopefully you found an alternative that would work for you if you didn't like that. So before we go and punch our mats, I wanted to point out 2 things. The way the mats are on the sample layout, there are lots and lots of options. So if you do not want your photo mats to be the size that they have them on the project recipe, one, there's extra space. You're going to have extra paper to be able to adapt it the way you want. You also can move them around. You can put them in the different spots. So you're not locked in to these particular photo mats. But if you're going to trim these photo mats, I would strongly recommend that you trim off the edge of the cardstock that you just did the punches on. At least my Rickrack chain, it's very jagged. So I'm going to trim just a little bit off of the edge there. So that way I have a nice clean edge for my photo mats. So if you are using the photomats, the first set is going to be trimmed at 4.5 inches. And that piece, you're going to turn and rotate it, and you're going to have a 4.5 inch piece. So that one's going to be square. And then you're going to also have a 6.5 inch piece. And a little bit of scrap. So again, their instructions, it's 4.5 inch strip. To rotate it to get a 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch square and a 4.5 inch by 6.5 inch. The other piece we're going to do, it's going to be 3.5 inches. But again, if you don't know what your photos are going to end up like, you can definitely adapt some because you do have extra paper here. And this one is 5.5, which again is right to the edge of the trimmer. So 5.5 and a 5.5. And then you've got scrap. And that is all of our cutting. So I have, we're going to go ahead and take our layout and let's just kind of get it pre-assembled, and then I'll talk a little bit about putting the rickrack on. So I selected 2 base papers that are the same. So this one. So then we cut one paper that had, that was a shorter one, and that one's going to go all the way on the left side. And then the piece from the same piece of paper is going to go over on the right side near the top. And now we have room. We're going to have our 6-inch piece is going to go like that on the left side of the paper. And our 5-inch piece is going to go on the right. And it ends up being about 1 inch from the top and the bottom for both of these pieces. So the smaller piece is going to be equally spaced from the top to the bottom, and over here it's going to be equally spaced. And then we're going to put our rickrack on. So the nice thing about the rickrack, and I'm going to see if I can hold this up. Okay, I know I have lousy light, but you can kind of see that the way the rickrack is, you can actually cover up the edge between the 2 pieces of paper. So when you're laying it down, you can, if you lay it down carefully, you could do that. The other thing I wanted to point out is that on this side of the paper, on the right-hand side, if you start laying out your rickrack one way here, you might want to be sure that you lay it out with the same orientation on all 3 pieces so it'll look the same. And you can, it isn't as important over here on the other side of the page, but you might want to pay attention to how you lay out these 3 rickracks. So I am going to use my parchment covered cardstock, and I am going to put repositionable adhesive on all of my rickrack chains when I'm ready to go ahead and put those down. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pause the recording, and we will come back when we're closer to being assembled. All right, so a couple of things that we discussed while we were off camera is a little bit more about these rickracks. So you cut the one in half that's over on the left-hand page, and if you put it underneath the first one, it actually looks a little bit better. We were talking about the spacing between the 2 rickracks, and do you want them to be lined up parallel to each other, or do you want them the opposite of each other? So it really depends on what look you're going for. You can see on this one, they're a little closer together baby than what I had on the black ones, but I think they still looked fine. So again, something else that you could do with this. We also discussed about if you don't know what you're going to be doing with your photos, that you still have lots of options. And on the original sample done by Creative Memories, that they have this, and this is actually a mat that comes in the embellishment pack. So this is not truly a mat that they cut out of any of the cardstock in order to make this layout. The one additional thing is that we were talking about the pockets. You could kind of take a look at these and try to decide what size the pockets are. I didn't have the collection in time to be able to do that for you. And we mentioned options about just matting your photos on cardstock or not matting your photos and putting them on. But one other option is pulling out, you may have an old library card book pocket template, which was really big, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe in the scrapbooking world. And I haven't seen a whole lot of them, but there are templates online that you can get and you can use. And the nice thing about them is that when you fold them up and you go to slide your photo in here, that's not going to catch on any adhesive, which is really nice. So you could take one of these templates, trim 3 of them, and put them across the page here. And as we were discussing this and I was thinking about it, I think what I'm going to do for the VIP class is create a few more of these templates with pockets of various sizes. So depending on what photo size you're going to want to use, I'll provide some templates. So if you are not a Consistently Creative Croppers VIP right now because you haven't purchased from Cheryl, Colleen, or Kari in the past 6 months, then you might want to go ahead and do that. And we'll be providing that template or set of templates at our VIP class here at the end of the month. So that is my sample, and I will also be doing the project recipe digitally, and I'll be walking through that. But I think Cheryl has her sample, so I'll go ahead and spotlight her. Ooh, that looks really nice. What collection did you use, Cheryl?
That's the riveting. The new ones, not riveting, the Denim Revival.
Oh, that is the collection that they had.
Yes.
Nice.
So this is the Denim Revival, and I had some old flowers from the original denim, and then I just had a couple of embellishments from the Cue the Blue. So I stuck those in there. But my photos have this white on here, but I decided to leave that on there, and I'm going to put the stickers, you know, the write-on stickers,
right,
when I can find mine. They're here somewhere. I'm gonna put them right over this because I'm not sure what I would write on to make sure it doesn't come off on the photo. But anyway, I'm gonna put, you know, so I can put my labeling right there. And I did not actually need, I like my photos the way I trimmed them down, so I'm not going to put any pockets. So,
and I don't think you need them. I think it looks great.
Yeah, so I like the layout, and I particularly like the Rickrack on here and the different areas that they have it and the way they used it. I think it's pretty cool.
Nice. Excellent.
Thank you, Kari. I really like the layout. Lots of photos.
Good. Yeah. And I don't know that anybody else is on to be able to share their layout. So when you do finish a layout, be sure to put it in our Consistently Creative Croppers Facebook group, and I will create an album for that. So thank you so much for joining us, and hope to see you at let's see, we're next week. It's an open Zoom, and we're doing the April monthly kit. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, Kari.
Night.
Good night.